have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Andy. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing okay. Everybody's noticing that I have a floppy eyelid. It's called ptosis. I'm getting it looked after. I'm seeing the right doctors. It's nothing serious underneath. It'll be fixed eventually.
Couldn't you come up with a better name for it than ptosis?
P-T-O-S-I-S. I had never heard of it.
Yeah, but maybe you could call it floppy.
Floppy eyelid. Anyway, we have a lot of serious news to get to. And we're going to start off by talking about the losses of two giants of our community. Philanthropist James C. Hormel, who was the first out gay U.S. ambassador, and Paulette Goodman, former national president of PFLAG, who served the group since 1983.
Heroes to all of us. President Biden has named two LGBTQ activists with disabilities to the Ability One Commission, which helps people with disabilities.
A go-to right-wing federal judge in Texas has invalidated provisions of the Affordable Care Act that protect LGBTQ people.
He really is the go-to guy. He's quite something. Meanwhile, in another court, not that one certainly, a trans woman who filed an anti-discrimination suit against the notorious Hobby Lobby company in 2013 has just won.
In family news, Billie Jean got married, Pete and Chasten are new parents, and Eminem's kid has come out.
It's quite a list. There is a big win for binational couples in Taiwan and for a lesbian golfer in Scotland.
People with HIV are eligible for COVID booster shots, but only if their HIV is untreated or advanced at this point.
And we're all looking forward to our new summer treat. The new American Crime Story series is featuring the Clinton impeachment and has some outperformers in key roles. We're going to show you a little trailer preview of that.
We were doing this show back then.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right, James Hormel. You should know his name, the gay philanthropist, activist, and groundbreaking diplomat, has died at 88, survived by his husband, Michael Peter Nguyen Arake.
Nguyen Arake.
Look, Hormel was best known for his funding of gay institutions and causes. And of course, he was the first out ambassador from the United States to Luxembourg. There he is being sworn in with his former partner there holding the book with Madeleine Albright. But the Republican-led Senate, led by Trent Lott in those days, refused to allow a vote on his nomination. So President Clinton used a recess appointment to get him into service.
It took almost 2 years. He was originally nominated in 1997. And they fought over it for ages. All the right-wing Republicans in the Senate just trashed Hormel up, down, and sideways. And finally, Clinton exercised his right to the recess appointment in '99,
right.
Which only allowed Hormel to hold office as ambassador for about a year and a half.
Yeah. But I mean, Clinton tried to get him in as ambassador to Fiji first, and the Fijians said, we don't want a homosexual, and they backed off.
Well, at least the Luxembourgians.
Yes, they were fine.
More progressive. Now, Hormel he was, the heir to the Hormel spam fortune. He was a major Democratic donor.
Spam the meat.
but that wasn't his only qualification for this job. He had attended the University of Chicago Law School and became the dean of the law school, where he urged students to take up public service law as a career. He created the Gay and Lesbian Center at the San Francisco Public Library, which is a major institution. And he did that early on, and it was a visionary thing to do. He certainly supported hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations and individuals in the community over many years. And his son, he leaves 5 kids from his early marriage to a woman, described him as a man of immense integrity and dignity. And it's true, he was such a good guy and such a nice guy.
Right. The objections that were raised at the time from the Republicans were that he had founded this, Hormel Gay and Lesbian Center at the public library because it included documents relating to NAMBLA. I mean, most libraries, include things related to Hitler. That doesn't make them supporters of that. It's a library. The Family Research Council circulated a tape of him laughing at a joke about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. So the Catholic League, an anti-LGBT group, labeled him anti-Catholic, and Republicans acted horrified at his $12,000 donation to the production of that great documentary, It's Elementary, about elementary school kids years ago learning about gay issues.
Well, we have a video about him, and let's take a look at that and learn a little more.
My book, Fit to Serve, is both a personal and political story. The personal part of it leads into the political, actually. I was born in 1933, which was a terrible year, probably the worst year of the Depression, in a small town in southern Minnesota, and most of the people were dependent on my family's company for their well-being. We lived on the edge of town on a large estate, which kept us really quite separate from the rest of the community. We were continually protected because of kidnap threats. It was a very isolating experience and very difficult for a little boy to feel a part of anything. In the early 50s, I was at college where I met a wonderful person. We fell in love. We started dating. We saw each other all the time. There was something idealistic about it that was very beautiful. And it ignored the underlying tension that I was beginning to feel from my own sexuality. And I didn't want to deal with it, so I didn't. I got married, and we had 5 children. Slowly, through the relationship, our communication broke down. I could not admit to her that I was gay. I had a very hard time admitting it to myself. When I finally did, I felt guilt, shame, embarrassment, very painful. The political side of my story comes about as I start to recognize that there was a whole constituency of people who were not properly represented in our society. When I began this process, this quest for the ambassadorial appointment, I talked with my friend, Senator Dianne Feinstein, and she said to me, "Jim, be careful," she said, "they will eat you alive." When she said it, I didn't know what she meant. But I found out very quickly that she meant that people would do whatever they could, in whatever nasty ways they could think, to destroy my nomination, even if it meant destroying me. They ultimately inspired me to stick with what I was doing, and I think that they inspired a lot of people to support what I was doing. I was nominated officially in October of 1997, and the president finally appointed me in a recess appointment in June of 1999. Never was I challenged as being unqualified for the position. It was always focused on how could we possibly send a gay man into a job representing the United States government. The greatest moment in the process for me was ultimately the realization that I was the ambassador. That came at my swearing in. It was also a special thrill for me to be surrounded by my family, my children, my former spouse, my grandchildren. It was a moment at which I recognized that I was the highest ranking openly gay person in the United States government. And that was a big moment, not just for me, but for a whole constituency that had been held back for all of our history. This book was written for people, whether they are gay or not, to recognize how important it is for them to be true to themselves and to recognize that they have the power within them to make a difference in this world.
Great American, he was one of the founders of the Human Rights Campaign Fund back in 1981. Served on the board of AMFAR and the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. It was a great institution out there in California.
He was a smart, thoughtful guy, and we were lucky to have him in all those positions, and glad he lived a long life, and sorry at his loss and at his family's loss of him.
Sure. And we also want to remember another 88-year-old who passed this week, Paulette Goodman, who died August 15th. She had been the national president of PFLAG from 1988 to 92. She helped found the DC Metro chapter in 1983 after her daughter came out to her in 1981. She was born in a Jewish family in Nazi-occupied Paris, somehow survived, lost an awful lot of relatives in the Holocaust, and this informed her work. Moved to the United States with her family in 49. At PFLAG DC, she set up a support group, helpline.
Tell them what PFLAG is.
The parents and friends of lesbians and gays.
They've now, I think, redefined that title, but that's what it was. It was basically a support group for parents who were first encountering having lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans children or relatives and wanting to get together to talk about it. And when her lesbian daughter came out to her, she made the connection. She realized that her daughter was going to face the same stigma and danger that she, as a Jewish child in Nazi-occupied Paris, and all those of her family and those around her had faced, and she wanted to do something about it.
And when she ran the DC group, she led a campaign to get ads for the group on DC buses. And she also famously wrote a note to Barbara Bush when her husband was president at the time. And Mrs. Bush wrote back saying, "We cannot tolerate discrimination against any individual groups." And she put that letter out there and it made national news. The first message coming from the White House. This is George Bush Sr.
It was 1989, and Barbara Bush got some blowback on that.
Yeah, in her later years, she started the first PFLAG chapter in a retirement community, Riderwood in Virginia, helping residents accept their LGBTQ grandchildren. And she also helped found chapters in Delaware, Maryland, and West Virginia. And there's an interview with her by Eric Marcus at makinghistory.com. And we
Making Gay History. No,
I'm sorry, makinggayhistory.com, and we will link to that in our email.
Is it? I don't know. Is it .com or .org? Try one or the other.
It's .com.
Okay, I believe you.
Talk. I'll check it.
Okay. Update on that in a second. The beauty of sitting with your technology. Meanwhile, we'll move on to current day.
.com.
Thank you. My mistake. Moving on to our current president and what he's up to. Yet again this week, we have some more LGBTQ appointments by President Biden. This time to the Ability One Commission, which helps find government jobs or government-related jobs for people with disabilities. On the left there is Gabe Cazares. who is the director of the Houston Office for People with Disabilities. He is blind and Latinx. And on the right is our great heroine, Heidi Feldblum, who you know for many years as a commissioner on the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, an author of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and has her own disabilities. And she...
Well, they listed her in the White House release as a lesbian who has a psychiatric disability of anxiety disorder.
There you go. So these are two more great appointments by the Biden administration. And
by the way, Ms. Feldblum would still be on the EEOC because Trump had to appoint some Democrats and tried to appoint her, but Senator Mike Lee from Utah objected that she had radical views on marriage.
The same thing they said about Hormel 25 years ago. He had radical views on marriage, supporting same-sex marriage.
Well, Trent Lott said homosexuality is a sin,
equivalent
to kleptomania. I mean, come on, that's what happened in those days. So times don't change. Then the president was at a press conference after the passage of the Infrastructure Act and was asked by the Washington Blade, whether there were lessons from that could apply to the Equality Act. And he, said, everybody told me I couldn't do this. Don't think you can't do it. Well, I think we got to get rid of the filibuster.
I think if you added the Equality Act to the infrastructure bill, that might be a way to get it passed. But standing alone, not anytime soon. But I haven't given up. Someone asked me at dinner the other night, do you think these infrastructure bills are going to pass? And I said, yes, I think they are. And she said, really? And I said, yeah, I'm getting more
Pollyannish
about it.
Optimistic. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I feel optimistic when I saw the message that came out of the administration this week that was sent to transgender students from around the country, from administration officials, most of whom are out LGBTQ, some who are not identified that way. But wow, it's a powerful message. It's about 4 minutes, and we're going to 5 minutes, and we're going to send you that message now.
Hello, I am Suzanne Goldberg, Acting Assistant Secretary for the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. Returning to school can be both exciting and nerve-wracking for many students. Maybe you're starting a new school or returning to in-person learning after a long time away. Maybe you're worried about making friends or keeping up with a challenging new class. If you're a transgender student, perhaps you're worried about simply being accepted and safe and being treated with respect as you head into the new school year.
I'm Kristen Clark, the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. We know that many school administrators and educators are doing their best to make schools safe and welcoming places for all students, including LGBTQI students. We appreciate the work they do. But we also know that that's not the reality for all transgender students, including perhaps some of you. In some places, people in positions of authority are putting up obstacles that would keep you from playing on the sports field, accessing the bathroom, and receiving the supportive and life-saving care you may need. We're here to say that's wrong and it's against the law.
We know that you are resilient, and we hope you will find support where and when you need it. But we also want you to know that the Department of Education and the entire federal government stand behind you. Your rights at school matter. You matter.
The Department of Justice is here, along with the Department of Education, to investigate complaints about discrimination or harassment based on sexual orientation or gender identity. We want you to know that we are looking out for you, and we're here to protect your civil rights.
Hello, I am Dr. Rachel Levine, Assistant Secretary for Health. We know at the United States Department of Health and Human Services that learning environments free from bullying and harassment are vital to making sure that all students flourish, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. It is critical to support trans youth, their parents, and families to help them achieve the good health and well-being that everyone deserves.
We have many federal government resources for you. If you face discrimination or harassment at school because you are transgender, you can file a complaint with the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights at ed.gov/OCR. You can also find much more information and resources on a dedicated page for LGBTQI+ students at ed.gov/OCR/LGBT. Or just Google LGBTQI+ students and OCR, and you will find your way there.
We want to hear from you. You can file a complaint with the Justice Department at civilrights.justice.gov. The information is available in multiple languages. Discrimination will not be accepted on our watch. Right now, we are fighting against laws that tried to ban transgender athletes in West Virginia and deny health care for transgender young people in Arkansas. And recently, federal courts in both states have blocked those laws from being applied.
Discrimination and bullying have no place in our nation's schools. We all learn better when we are in safe and welcoming environments. If you are being bullied or know someone who is, we encourage you to visit stopbullying.gov for more information and resources. President Biden sent an unequivocal message to the transgender community. Quote, "To all transgender Americans watching at home, especially the young people, I want you to know your president has your back," unquote. Well, I want all of you to know that I have your back too, and I will do everything that I can to support and advocate for our community.
We stand behind you and are ready to act to defend your rights. Best of luck for this next school year.
I join my colleagues in wishing you all the best for an enriching and fulfilling school year.
Run it in every classroom in the country.
Well, that would be nice. By the way, about 20 organizations have gotten together to ask YouTube to stop bullying trans people by misgendering and dead naming them. So the bullying does not stop at the school door.
Turning briefly to the former administration, you know, Trump lost a lot of his social media platforms. There's one called Getter, Gettr, which is so unmoderated, which is their principle, that it's become the go-to place to post sexual pictures of underage children. And, you know, they can get into a lot of trouble for that.
Well, let's see if they do. Meanwhile, good news from Illinois.
Yes.
Megan Somerville worked at Hobby Lobby, trans woman.
23 years.
Yes, and as she transitioned, they told her that she could not use the women's restroom. And she filed a complaint with them, citing the Illinois Human Rights Act, which forbids discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. And this has been in the works, this complaint, since 2013. 2013, 8 years.
Well, she started out at one of those local, like, Human Rights Commission kind of things, and that can be slow, having served on one. But this ruling is from the Illinois 2nd District Appellate Court, and it's a landmark case because she won. The decision that she can use the women's restroom applies to every trans individual and every public restroom, not just the Hobby Lobby store in East Aurora, Illinois. So she was awarded $220,000 in damages and attorney's fees, and the court said this is sex discrimination.
Well, the other brilliant irony of this, of course, is that Hobby Lobby won a case at the Supreme Court a few years ago that said it had a right, as a private company, to assert a religious opinion that it was not going to cover reproductive health care for its employees, which was outrageous. That
they didn't raise the Christian card in this case, and the question is whether they can do that on appeal, where they might, feel that they could prevail. Somerville, by the way, went back to work, and she's still managing the custom framing department.
Well, this is, if they do appeal and they do raise that puts them right in the midst of this ongoing question of whether a religious exemption can trump a state human rights law, which is the law under which Megan Somerville won her settlement.
Forgive me, I am not an attorney. Are you allowed to raise issues that you haven't before on appeal?
Perry Mason would say no, but I don't know where that stands in this particular dispute. Right. They could bring a whole new case. Who knows?
Rachel Maddow won a court case this week from an appeals court. They threw out a $10 million defamation suit brought by the right-wing One America News Network against Maddow and NBC. She had said on her show that this group was literally paid Russian propaganda. The judges said that she was within her First Amendment rights. No reasonable viewer could conclude that Maddow implied an assertion of objective fact. That's an odd thing.
I don't know when you say literally.
Yeah, exactly. This network was ordered to pay $250,000 to Maddow and MSNBC in court costs. And of course, we don't know if we're going to see Rachel Maddow after her contract expires next year, at least on MSNBC.
We'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves on that. All right. So Megan Somerville wins a great case for trans people in the court. But of course, this week we have yet another horror story of a trans woman murdered in Dallas. This actually is the woman we told you about a week or so ago who was unidentified. She has now been identified. This is Miss Coco, 44 years old, was shot dead at a homeless encampment in Dallas. It took them a while to identify her.
34th such death this week. And as long as we're talking
this year.
Well, we don't know. And as long as we're talking about crime stories, Omar Vizquel, 54 years old, a Major League Baseball Hall of Fame candidate who played 24 seasons for 6 clubs, was let go from his managing job in the Mexican Baseball League just before he was slapped with a sexual abuse lawsuit by a bat boy for the Chicago White Sox minor league team. Vizquel was managing. The plaintiff, who's now 25, is autistic and is also suing under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Says he reported the incident in the shower to 2 employees, and they laughed it off. Vizquel denies the accusations, but he's also been accused by his second wife of abuse, not arrested in either incident.
No, but he's going to face these charges, these lawsuits.
Right.
All right.
Let's go back to Malone, New York for a second.
Okay.
This is the story of, it's upstate, right near the Canadian border. A kid named Garrett Smith, asked his mother, take me to New York City Pride. Instead, she organized one there in the little town of 14,000 people. And Garrett was presented with a proclamation by the local assembly member.
Very nice. I love these local stories.
Well, I didn't know about, and we got a notice about it this week. It started in 2017 about that little gay LGBTQ bookshop in Mississippi in a town of 3,000 people. This woman who's a local professor there of literature, she started a bookshop there. Wow, there she is on Main Street. I don't have a picture of it, but wow, that's terrific. She's the author of The Lesbian South, Ms. Parker.
In Virginia, at the Wesley Center at Virginia Tech University, the Wesley Center is the religious organization on campus. They fly the rainbow flag outside as a sign of their welcoming nature. Well, it turns out the rainbow flag has been repeatedly stolen, and it has now been replaced by the Vandals took down the flag most recently and replaced it with a Confederate flag. So there's a whole big investigation going on there to find out who is up to that. And we got a note from a viewer in Illinois warning us that if you are counting, he was married to his partner, but had registered with the state university retirement system as domestic partners or civil union partners before they got married, and they never adjusted it to a marriage. So when his husband died, the retirement system, they told them they had not filled out the forms correctly, they had not made the adjustment, and that is depriving him of some of the retirement benefits, the successor benefits. So he wanted us to pass along to you the warning to make sure your papers are in order.
Absolutely. And of course, some states have stopped recognizing domestic partnerships that you may have gotten, and you think you're going to get something from that. And they're saying, no, you got to get married by our standards. That didn't happen in New York, but it has happened elsewhere.
Well, I'll just say that people have been yelling at me for years to make a will, and I've finally done it.
Okay.
It's taken me a while.
All right.
I'm admitting that there may come a day when I'm not here anymore.
Well, in New York City, the Visiting Nurse Service of New York was awarded a $3.4 million grant from the NIH's National Institute of Nursing Research to study the psychosocial well-being and quality of life of individuals after gender-affirming surgery.
Yeah,
Also,
this is going to be a big 5-year study. They're recruiting 300 participants. So if you are trans or non-binary and have had gender-affirming surgery, the Visiting Nurse Service Gender Affirmation Program would like to hear from you if you would like to be part of this ongoing study.
Staying in New York City, watch out for incoming Mayor Eric Adams. We didn't report this story before, but he gave an interview on television where, he was said, well, I want to, with too much bail reform. I believe in bail reform, but not for the 7 major crimes. And he listed, felonious assault and sodomy among them. Sodomy. And nobody, it got into the papers, and Alan Roscoff from the Jim Ellis Liberal Democratic Club let him have it. And he said, oh, I don't mean consensual sodomy. Well, sodomy is not on the books anymore. You shouldn't be saying it. It's rape that you're talking about. Rape.
All right. In back to Texas, where a federal judge, the federal judge who makes all the horrible decisions, which he manages to make applicable across the country, even though he is a nutcase. And an evil nutcase, he issued another wacky opinion saying that the Franciscan Alliance Catholic hospitals can have a religious exemption from the parts of the Affordable Care Act that have non-discrimination rules applying to LGBTQ people. The Catholic hospitals that brought the suit only wanted exemptions from providing abortions or gender transition surgeries. He went way beyond that.
Well,
and said,
plus, nobody was complaining. Nobody filed a complaint against the Franciscans. They just brought this preemptively.
Well, that's what they do these days. That's what the right wing does. They bring these preemptive suits.
And the judge suggested that President Biden, a Catholic, quote unquote, may have a religious animus in the failure to include more religious exemptions.
Wasn't the Philadelphia Catholic Adoption Agency case a preemptive case? There weren't any complaints against the Catholic services.
Well, I mean, it came about when they were trying to sign the contracts, and they didn't want to sign the contracts anymore if they had to affirm non-discrimination.
Yes. Okay, all right.
Where is the Pope stopping this cruelty? That's what I want to know. Anyway, the ACLU is intervening.
All right, can we get to good family news?
We can. Sure.
All right, well, let's start with Billie Jean King, who's all over the place. She should be here. Why isn't she here? She watches this show, or used to.
Her book is out. We could talk about that, All In, and that is where she has revealed that she's been married for 3 years. Now, she's been with Ilana Kloss for 40 years.
42.
They decided to do it privately. Well, they were together for 40 years when they got married. Do it privately. They were egged on to get married at all by Elton John, and they were married by former Mayor David Dinkins in his apartment with his wife as a witness.
Well, they had that whole tennis connection because Dinkins is a total tennis addict, and they named, didn't they name some of the tennis center after Dinkins?
After Dinkins and after Billie Jean.
Yes. So they are married. They've made it legal after 40 plus years.
And Pete and Chasten Buttigieg are married, and they have just revealed that they are parents.
They haven't given us the details yet, but the story is probably that they have adopted a child, maybe one child, more children, who knows. Pete is 39, Chasten is 32. They've been working on this for a while. They talked about how it's been tough. They thought they were going to have a child to adopt, and then they lost that one. But it sounds like they now have a child, and they will reveal the details shortly. Meanwhile, here in New York, in a few weeks, there is an annual Men Having Babies conference, September 18th and 19th at the Westin New York Hotel at Times Square. It's basically about surrogacy, and I don't think Pete and Chasten are doing this through a surrogate. But if you're interested in that, just Google Men Having Babies conference here in New York.
Eminem's child, Stevie, 19, has come out as non-binary in a TikTok video. "Watch me become more comfortable with myself," the caption reads. Stevie says Stevie uses all pronouns.
Yeah, that is obviously not a picture of Stevie at 19, but that is the picture they released with Eminem to just establish the relationship.
Okay.
All right, and more family news from the world of sports. Olympic gold medalist Breanna Stewart, a basketball player with the Seattle Storm and member of the U.S. Women's gold medal winning basketball team, there on the left. In the middle, her new baby with fiance Marta Chargay Casademont, born to a surrogate, I believe. Casademont is a former player with the Phoenix Mercury. The baby's name is Ruby May, and she was born right after the Olympics. So they're squeezing in a lot of experiences right on top of each other.
I do have a correction to make. .com.org from last week. The correct link to Outsports, which you want to check for Olympic coverage and all kinds of sports stuff, is outsports.org, not .com, as I put in our email. Thanks to viewer Drew for catching that and telling me.
Well, maybe you can go there for the results of the Prefontaine Classic race this coming weekend. On Saturday, Sha'Carri Richardson, the brilliant 100-meter dash champion who was barred from the Olympics because of marijuana use, is finally past her, her timeout. And she is going to be racing at the Classic in Oregon. You may remember Steve Prefontaine as the great champion many years ago. And she is going to be facing all the Olympic medal winners from the 100-meter dash. All three, gold, silver, and bronze, and Sha'Carri are in this race on Saturday. It is going to be a stunning event. So she's got to prove herself.
You can also check on what's going on with the Paralympics in Tokyo. And we have a lesbian couple duo there. Jude Hamer and Lauren Rowles from the UK, I believe.
Yes.
They started dating during COVID lockdowns. Hamer is a basketball star, wheelchair basketball, and Rowles a rower. Rowles won gold in Rio in 2016, Hamer the bronze in 5 European championships.
The Paralympics always follow the Olympics in the same site as the Olympics. And so they're coming up now in Tokyo. There are so far 22 identified out LGBTQ competitors in the Paralympics. There were just over 180 in the Olympics, but we're expecting to hear about a few more coming out as the Paralympics are conducted.
Okay. And Anne, I'm going to give the story to you. Tell us about the lesbian breakthrough in golf.
Well, we have another lesbian veteran player who's a first-time winner on the LPGA Tour at the Scottish Open. This is Ryan O'Toole. She won the Scottish Open this weekend. She has been on the LPGA Tour for, I think, about 12 years. 11
seasons.
Yeah, so, but she is fairly newly out just in the last year or two. Her fiance is Gina Mara, there on the right. And during the tournament, first of all, the NBC and Golf Channel announcers were all totally matter-of-fact about Ryan is engaged. She's getting married in December to her fiance, Gina. They would take shots of Gina. Ryan was blowing kisses to Gina in the tournament as she was playing. And then when she won on the final green, that's Gina on the right. We'd like to show her face there, but this is the only picture available. And they kissed on the final green. That picture is not being circulated either. That's another friend on the left.
And Ryan said, it's nice to be able to share that and to have her greet me on the green and just live in a world where I'm not scared.
And a couple of years ago, Mel Reid, Ryan is American, Mel Reid, a British player, also won after many years on the tour after she came out. So I'm just wondering who's next. This should come in threes. What next sports star or what LPGA player is going to come out after a long career and win for the first time? Keep your eyes on the British Women's Open this weekend. All right.
Okay. And, you know, this was a feature story in the Washington Post, but I learned a lot from it. The Congressional Cemetery, which we've reported over the years as a resting place for some prominent LGBTQ notables, basically has a gay corner at this point. Lieutenant Lenny Matlovich, one of the first out soldiers in this country, started it when he died in 1988. It's a 10-second walk to the joint graves of J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson. Something guides there are discouraged from mentioning that they were lovers. But it also includes Walt Whitman's lover, Peter Doyle, lesbian pioneer Kayla Hewson and Barbara Giddings, William Bryce Mueller, who was the founder of Forgotten Scouts, which worked against the ban there. Burial plots run about $10,000 if you're interested. There are 60 total in the gay corner now, and 100 more people have bought plots.
Well, there are also a few non-gay people there, like Tip O'Neill and former DC Mayor Marion Barry, who stereotypically after his demise still plays his part. He has his donors listed on the back of his headstone. That's what I learned from that article.
Yeah. Okay. Are we moving on to international
news? Yes.
Well, in Taiwan, a Taiwanese Macanese couple, they won the right to marry Ting Si Yen and Liang Chin Fei, who was from Macau. Taiwan legalized same-sex marriage, but not if a Taiwanese marries someone from a country that does not recognize it. So they went to court. Now, this ruling only applies to them, and they want it applied to all couples. They co-founded a group to help Taiwanese whose partners are from places where same-sex marriage is not recognized, like China and Japan and Thailand and Vietnam. Overall, 6,000 same-sex couples have married in Taiwan. I wonder if they will still be recognized when China drops the hammer on Taiwan the way they've dropped it on Hong Kong.
But congratulations to them for being able to finally marry, even if they're the only international couple so far to do so. In Romania, the government there is so enamored of what's going on in Hungary that they are going to try to pass a no promo homo law too, just like Hungary's. They're working on that in Parliament. I have no idea whether they'll succeed. I can't imagine they won't. But thousands of people showed up in the streets of Bucharest this weekend to enact Bucharest Pride. So it looks like they have a strong community there that will be fighting back against passing that law.
And the crackdown continues in Turkey. They're getting a court order to remove the gay dating app Hornet from its app store in Turkey, where it has more than 3 million users in Turkey. The government blocked the Hornet website last August.
Well, good news from Israel, where the Supreme Court there rejected the plea of a wife who wanted to sue her ex-husband for lying to her because he married her and said he was straight when in fact he was gay, and told her he was religious, and turns out no, he's pretty secular. And the court said, forget it. These are personal issues. These are moral problems. Deal with him directly. Don't bring it to the court.
Which is a good argument for gay liberation, so that everybody will be out and these kind of things won't happen.
Yes.
In Copenhagen, they're hosting World Pride and the Euro Games. The Euro Games. Our correspondent Shep Wanted is there and reports that Crown Princess Mary of Denmark opened the Human Rights Conference there. It's the first time a royal has opened a World Pride event, for the record. For the Games, 2,000 LGBTQ athletes are on hand, 1,000 events, 50 countries. Big March is on Saturday, the 21st.
In Luxembourg, terrible story in the world of race car driving. A race car trainer has killed his wife, who was the CEO of the race track, and her female lover, who was a lawyer, and himself. The story was that he had been knowledgeable and tolerant of this relationship for a while, but somehow that ran out, and he has now killed everybody.
And, you know, I don't want to gloss over the biggest story of the week, of course, which is Afghanistan. And of course, we're all concerned about people there, for the women there, for LGBTQ people there. But there's so much crap on the news about it, mostly former people who got us into this mess, you know, now condemning getting out. We never won hearts and minds. They had a wonderful interview on Amy Goodman's show, Democracy Now!, with a former State Department official who quit in 2009 over the surge. And he said, you know, we were asking the Afghan people to back a corrupt and brutal government against them. Women, the majority of the people in prison under the current government, were there for morality crimes. So, you know, look, Taliban, terrible, but the warlords, come on.
Well, let us not underestimate the brutality and crimes of the Taliban, but well, it's horrible. It's very sad.
Go to democracynow.org for that interview with Matthew Ho, H-O-H.
And we follow that with a very strange story from the UK, where a contestant on the Great British Baking Show, Michael Chakravarty,
yes,
he got kicked off Grindr for they claimed he was impersonating himself.
Yeah, this happened to Andy Cohen too.
Yeah.
If you're famous, this can happen, and of course these are celebrities over there at least, and here. One of the responses on Twitter to him being kicked off was, "They've never had a problem with masturbating before." I thought that was pretty funny.
But it's true. I guess if you're a known person and you go on one of these social media apps, or maybe Grindr in particular, they don't believe it's you, so they accuse you of impersonating you and kick you off.
And Qatar is hosting the World Cup next year, first nation in the Middle East to do so. It criminalizes gay sex, but they're trying to act like they're going to be tolerant of gays during this. Don't fall for it. It's if you read about what people go through there, it's awful.
All right. In AIDS news, the CDC is approving and recommending a third dose of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines for those who are immune compromised, which includes those with advanced or untreated HIV. And it's sort of self-defined. You know, you can report yourself and go get it. People are just going off and getting booster shots on their own anyway, I guess.
Right.
But that's going to be all of us soon. I'm concerned about this longevity of the vaccine business.
Right. Well, vaccinated immunocompromised people are 485 times more likely to end up hospitalized from COVID. So it's huge if you are immunocompromised.
And people do get flu vaccines every year, new ones. So I guess this could be a routine thing to get regular booster shots. But
my question is whether the boosters are designed for Delta, which is now literally 99% of the infections in the United States.
I don't know if they're being tweaked or whether they're just trying to pile on more to try to prevent.
Well, there is no FDA-approved test for checking immune response after getting a vaccine. This is a problem.
Well, and then there's Moderna is starting human trials of this new HIV vaccine, which is just a miraculous idea that they could actually pull off an HIV vaccine. But it's also going to be an mRNA vaccine like the COVID vaccines. And it makes me wonder what the longevity, is this a particular feature of mRNA vaccines that they're not long lasting particularly?
Well, they think they can adjust this for the 16 variants of HIV that they know about. Look, they're only going to be studying 56 HIV negative participants, 18 to 56. But it's a great concept, and it could be. But they're not going to have the results of this phase trial until spring 2023. So patience.
This is
and take your PrEP in the meantime.
Yes, and perhaps afterwards too. We'll see. In Chile, the government has reached a settlement with an HIV-positive woman who was sterilized in 2002 after giving birth. The government has agreed to end forced sterilizations and to guarantee reproductive rights, I think, to everybody, but particularly to women with HIV. All right, entertainment news.
Well, we
don't have a lot of time, so let's zip through
We're looking forward to Ryan Murphy's third American crime story. It's called Impeachment, coming to FX on September 7th, about the Bill Clinton Monica Lewinsky scandal. Out, Sarah Paulson plays Linda Tripp, unrecognizable. Billy Eichner plays Matt Drudge. Edie Falco is Hillary, and Clive Owen is Bill. And Monica is played by Beanie Feldstein. That's quite a cast, and we do have the trailer.
As you no doubt heard, you get to work in the West Wing as of this morning. You're going to be working right beside the people who run the world. Please, be professional.
There's a woman I'm very close to, in the midst of an affair with the President of the United States.
How do I know it's true?
Hello?
You will lose her as a friend.
I've made my peace with that.
Are you sure you have enough evidence?
My calls with Monica.
Holy shit.
It all has to come out.
The press will destroy her.
You don't know the half of it.
My wife went into a hotel room with Bill Clinton.
That is a lie.
President, do you know a woman named Monica Lewinsky?
That's me. That's my face.
This isn't about justice.
Then what is it about?
Impeachment.
William Jefferson Clinton, do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman?
Feldstein is bringing Funny Girl back to Broadway in the spring.
I firmly believe and have since any of that happened that Monica Lewinsky got a raw deal, was exploited, and should never, ever have been condemned for that.
By the way, in the Funny Girl revival, first in 58 years, Harvey Fierstein is revising the book.
Yeah, and Barbara Streisand may have a few things to say about it. I was interested to read that Jennifer Hudson as Aretha Franklin in the new movie Respect insisted on including the song Ain't No Way, which was a big Aretha song, which was written by her sister, Carolyn Franklin, who was an out lesbian and who wrote the song about women, a sort of stealth queer anthem. So look for that in the movie Respect.
It's come a long way.
I saw this movie that's playing at LA Outfest is on right now. There's a movie called Firebird playing. We told you last week about another movie. What was it? Anyway, Firebird is Estonia in the 70s in the Russian army. A private and a pilot, two men have an affair. It's kind of tragic. Kind of predictable, but well done, moving. And I saw another great movie I'll tell you more about next week and show you the trailer, Ellie and Abby, and Ellie's Dead Aunt from Australia. It's a very charming lesbian teenage movie that will be released.
We have a minute 30 to go.
Jason Rodriguez
of Pose is spearheading a new talent agency focused on developing LGBTQ performers of color called Array-gency. The word array, A-R-R-A-Y, G-E-N-C-Y, and you can find them online at arraygency.com. They're doing mentorships as well as representation, partnering with Ricardo Sebastian, a non-binary Latinx manager. They are scouting new talent and seeking individuals who are vocal about their needs, and they're announcing their roster on August 20th.
You don't suppose there's anyone who watches this show who wants to get into show business, do you? Well, if you do, you can come host this show, but you better have a news basis.
Please, we need reinforcements.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, good luck with your drooping eyelid, Andy. I look forward.
Thank you. Well, there are actually a pair of glasses that can hold it up if you want.
Better than a toothpick.
It's called a ptosis crutch.
We learn so much as we age.
I didn't know about any of these things.
All right. Well, we won't give you news about that in our show note, but if you go to gayusatv.org, you can sign up to get our weekly email that'll tell you what's on the show and give you a lot of extras.
And it'll tell you how to help us out if you'd like to do that.
That too. And meanwhile, we will see you next week at 1 p.m. on Facebook.